After a tactical Hungarian Grand Prix, F1 is already moving on to the next race at Spa for the Belgian Grand Prix, which is now the last race before the summer break, which means that it is once again time for my preview and predictions. This is a series where I'll be previewing, and then at the end of the video I'll be giving out my early predictions for the upcoming Grand Prix. Now let's get into the video. As usual, I'll be talking about McLaren, Ferrari, Aston Martin, Mercedes and Red Bull later on, so stick around for that. The Belgian Grand Prix has moved from racing at the end of August to the end of July, as it is now the final race before the summer break, and that means the weather is ever so slightly different. The change by 1 month means that the chance of rain is slightly reduced, and the weather is likely to be slightly warmer. Although looking at the 10-day right now, it's unlikely that's going to be what happens. The Spa circuit is a completely different challenge when compared to Budapest. Budapest is a slow, tight and technical circuit which requires very high downforce. Spa, however, is one of the highest speed circuits of the year. The teams tend to run much lower downforce at Spa when compared to Budapest, and Spa features some iconic corners such as Eau Rouge, Puon and Blanchimont. DRS around Spa is all important as the run down the Kemmel Straight provides a perfect opportunity for overtaking due to the slingshot from the top of Eau Rouge. Due to the lower downforce and higher speed of the circuit, teams that were strong at Silverstone are likely to be stronger at Spa, which could change the running order once again, and Williams are likely to have a much better race at Spa when compared to Budapest. The Belgian Grand Prix also sees the return of the sprint race, meaning that teams only have one practice session to prepare their cars, and due to the length of Spa, the teams have to quickly decide on the compromise that they want to make. Due to the high-speed nature of the circuit, Pirelli will be taking a step harder tyres than they did at Budapest, as they are taking the C2, C3 and C4 compound of tyres, and last year there was a total of 38 pit stops, as the strategy was a 2-stop, and I think this year could be the same. Due to the length of the circuit, the undercut can be very powerful, meaning that we could see some teams using 2 sets of mediums and then 1 set of hard tyres for the race. Spa is one of the easiest circuits on the calendar for overtaking, and we can see that as last year there was a grand total of 74 on-track overtakes. To help with overtaking, Spa features 2 DRS zones. The first DRS zone is down the pit straight into La Source, and this is usually used as a setup for the second DRS zone. The second DRS zone is on the exit of Eau Rouge or Radion, depending on whatever you want to call it, and this is where the vast majority of overtakes happen. Due to the new cars being able to follow each other, we tend to see them get a slingshot from Eau Rouge and then breeze past down the Kemmel Straight. For me, it is way too easy to overtake at Spa, and the length of the DRS zone does not need to be anywhere near as long as it currently is, but it does mean that we do get to see plenty of on-track racing. Last year's pole lap was a 1:43.665 by Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, which was pure domination as he was on pole by over 0.6 of a second. The fastest lap in the Grand Prix was a 1:49.354, also set by Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. The average speed for the fastest lap was 230.575 km per hour, whereas in Hungary 2022, the fastest lap speed was a 193.787 km per hour, which just goes to show how much faster Spa is when compared to Budapest. The fastest lap this year, I think, should be better than what we saw in 2022, as should the qualifying pole position lap time. I just want to say that if you are enjoying the video, I would greatly appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribe for more F1 content. I'm on my way to 3k subs, and I would really appreciate it if you help me get there. Now, let's get back to the video, and let's talk about the top 5 teams, and let's start with McLaren. For McLaren, they are now fairly set on being the second fastest team in F1 at the moment, as their car has now worked perfectly at 2 very different types of circuits. Both Silverstone and Hungary have been incredible for the team, as Lando Norris has finished second at both races, and this gives me confidence that McLaren can be very competitive at Spa as well. Spa has some similar characteristics to Silverstone in that it is a very high-speed circuit, and that is exactly where McLaren excelled. For Norris, he is coming into his own now as a top-level driver in the sport, as he was able to hold off a fast-charging Perez last time out at Budapest. As for Piastri, it was a real shame last time at Budapest, when you compare the lap times of both Norris and Piastri, you can see that Piastri was a little bit too hard on his tyres, as his pace tends to drop a lot quicker than Lando's. As Piastri is a rookie, you can expect that he should find things a little bit more challenging over a race distance, especially when the temperatures were as high as they were at Budapest. With Spa likely being another good race, there is a chance that we may see the Papaya team once again standing on the podium as their resurgence in F1 continues to move forward. For Ferrari, last time out at Budapest, it was another feeling that they are simply slipping away from the likes of Mercedes and McLaren in terms of pace. Surprisingly, their tyre wear was not as bad as I feared it might have been, but as this graph shows when comparing Russell to Leclerc, you can see Leclerc's pace dropped faster than Russell's pace managed to, despite the fact that Leclerc was on a harder compound of tyre when compared to George. Going into the Belgian Grand Prix, Ferrari could have a decent race and could take the fight to Mercedes and maybe even McLaren, as the circuit should suit them as they have great efficiency. However, they need to ensure that they can get the strategy calls right and also need to make sure that they can maintain the race pace long enough. Between Leclerc and Sainz, there is very little to tell at the moment. Just when it looks like one driver is getting better of the other, the pace all of a sudden drops and the other driver has the advantage. You can see this yet again in Budapest when we compare the pace of both drivers. And this is going to be a bit of a struggle for Ferrari. They need one driver to really consistently be the faster driver, and they just don't have that at the moment. For Aston Martin, the Hungarian Grand Prix should have been one of their strongest races of the year, but they were very clearly the 5th fastest car, as neither Alonso or Stroll had any answer for the cars that were ahead of them. They have been simply outdeveloped by the cars in front of them, similar to Ferrari. When you look at the lap times of Alonso, Leclerc and Hamilton, you can see that Alonso does have similar pace to Charles on the hard tyres, but on the mediums he is nowhere compared to Leclerc, and compared to the Mercedes of Hamilton, Alonso is nowhere. This was supposed to be one of the strongest races for Aston Martin, and they were nowhere. Going into Spa, I believe they will be firmly the 5th fastest team, as they will struggle with a lack of straight line speed, and Stroll will be under threat from the likes of Albon in the Williams and the 2 Alpine drivers, provided they don't find a way to not finish the race. For Mercedes, the Hungarian Grand Prix was an interesting race. Russell was able to take full advantage of going out in Q1, meaning that he had 2 fresh sets of medium tyres, and he used those to perfection to be able to attack the track and use those to beat both Ferraris in an excellent recovery drive. However, for Mercedes, there is a worry for them that they are still the 2nd fastest Mercedes powered car. At the beginning of the year, they were 2nd fastest to Aston Martin, and now they are seemingly 2nd fastest to the McLaren team. However, one positive that seems to have come from this race is confirmation that Mercedes is very strong when they are on lower fuel. But right now, they are still lacking some pace when it comes to higher fuel pace. Based on the British Grand Prix, it should be another close and exciting battle between Mercedes and McLaren, and I do think we could see one of the Mercedes drivers potentially on the podium yet again. Finally, for Red Bull, the Hungarian Grand Prix was pure domination, as Max Verstappen cruised to yet another victory, and his teammate Sergio Perez also cruised to 3rd place on the podium. This means they have now beaten the McLaren record of 11 consecutive race victories. But this is an even more insane statistic. They have now won 22 out of the last 23 races. If not for Brazil 2022, Red Bull would have won an incredible full season worth of races in a row, which goes some way to talk about the absolute domination of not just Red Bull, but Max Verstappen as well. The Belgian Grand Prix was home to one of Verstappen's most crushing victories in 2022, and I believe that will be the case once again in 2023. So with that in mind then, what are my early predictions for the Grand Prix? For qualifying, I'm going to say Max Verstappen will take an easy pole position, but what about the race? Well, this is going to be a very interesting race in my opinion. P5 will be Oscar Piastri in the McLaren, P4 will be Lewis Hamilton, P3 will be Lando Norris, P2 will be Sergio Perez, and Max Verstappen will cruise to another victory at the Belgian Grand Prix. And the top midfield driver will be Alex Albon in the Williams, as Spa should suit Williams perfectly, and they should be right back up there taking the fight to Aston Martin and maybe even one of the Ferrari cars. But that is what I think. The question is though, what do you guys think? In the comments, let me know down below. And as always, comment, leave a like, and subscribe for more F1 content. Thank you all so much for watching.